Hey guys, Shoham here. So I haven't posted in a while actually. So this would be a little bare bones, a little hiccups will be there along the way. So I hope you guys would forgive me for that if such things happen. It's around 9. It's almost 10:30 in the night, and I am recording video, like a full-fledged video with proper introductions and everything, for the first time in this year. I have taken videos, like couple of unboxing videos earlier in this year, like in the last month or so, but they have been like sporadic and they are not very well polished as this would be. Believe it or not, this would be the polished one. This would be the actually more processed, manufactured ones, if you put it in that way. I am here with my brother. Brother, say hi. Say hi, you idiot. Okay. So, yeah. He's also in the YouTube game, so to speak. He has a gaming channel, Phonix Gaming, right? So yeah, you guys can subscribe to that. But he has a lot more subscribers than me actually, so I'm in no position to give shout out to him, so I won't. Okay. So I thought of making a video about what all the books that I've read so far in this year. Like, I had made a Goodreads goal of 50 books a year, and I kind of fell short. Big surprise there. And it actually, I read around 14 books, so I thought of doing an in-depth discussion about the same, and I hope you guys will like it. Okay. The first one that I read this year, actually, it would be cheating if I said that I finished this in this year, since I started reading it around 25th December last year. So I would give myself that kind of leeway. So the book that I would be talking about is Meg 2, The Trench. It's the second book in the Meg series, and it kind of lives up to the hype actually. So after the crazy wild goose chase that was Meg, and the main character Jonas Taylor, I didn't think they could actually top it with any subsequent book, so I was wrong. So Trench was a lot of fun actually. So it deals with it kind of divides the characters into 2 3 let's say branches, so to speak. The whole narrative is segregated into 2 3 branches, and then it gives a mission or a purpose to each and every character. And the arc that Terry goes through in this particular book is one of the most like, it made me hyperventilate quite hard. So actually, so I was on the edge of my seat, and I had goosebumps going through her, like whatever the journey she went through. And also the first Meg book didn't have any antagonist, so to speak, like any negative character, or so to speak. And that wasn't a problem with the book. I enjoyed it nonetheless. Like, the first book was basically about taming the nature, or man against the nature, that kind of dichotomy. But the second one is very much about like this kind of very much about Jonas's past catching up with him. And it's kind of like, there are several different antagonists in this book. They're very layered, so to speak. Like, Benedict Taylor is a fantastic, like, mustache twirling villain, and Celeste is a torrid vamp, which, like, these characters, Alton knows how to craft this kind of one-dimensional 90s character, but he knows how to make them enjoyable. Actually, I had a ball reading those chapters actually. So Meg, I finished this year. Following that, I finished Meg Primal Waters, the third book, which is the favorite. Like, it's kind of weird that this series keeps getting better and better with every subsequent novel. So Meg Primal Water is probably my favorite entry in the series so far. Like, I have read 3.5 books. I'm in the middle of the fourth book, Meg Hell's Aquarium, and it's pretty like it takes a little bit time to get going, and it takes a little bit time to get going and to to put the thrusters or engine in the full throttle, so to speak. And Meg Primal Water is very much a product of the early 2000s. If Meg was a product of the late 90s, Meg Primal Water is very much about like risk based reality shows, Daredevil, those kind of tasks, and Limp Bizkit, so to speak. So if anyone likes Limp Bizkit, I hope there are still Limp Bizkit fans, and I hope they'll enjoy this book. And Meg 3 has kind of like a subplot. It goes back and forth narratively. It deals a lot about how do I say it without spoiling the book. Like, it has flashback sequences which dates back to the pre Cretaceous period, like how the Meg kind of finds its way, and it tells about Hideaway's journey, which kind of doesn't serve any purpose in the main book or the main plot line of the book, but nonetheless it's pretty enjoyable. But I think that could have been kind of trimmed out. That wasn't necessary, so to speak, in the overarching theme of the story. But nonetheless, Meg Primal Waters is a lot of fun. Like I said, Jonas's past catches up with him big time in this one, and Marin, the main villain of Meg Primal Waters, man, they kind of made him a useless sidekick in the second one, but in the third one they made him again one dimensional. But Alton knows how to write his villains, so yeah, pretty good. The next one I finished would be Martian by Andy Ware. I wanted to read this before I before I thought of starting Project Hail Mary. I decided I should finish this one first, which doesn't serve any purpose, so to speak, as thematically or in narrative wise, because it doesn't share the same set of characters, or maybe it's set in the same universe, maybe I'm not sure, because Martian takes place in our world, and maybe I'm putting too much thought into this, but I think it's not it's a spiritual sequel, but it's also not a spiritual sequel. Like, Project Hail Mary is not a part of the Martian canon and whatsoever. Anyways, Martian is a pretty enjoyable book. I won't lie, I saw the movie first and I became such a fan that I wanted a more grassroots level view of that particular story, actually what went down and all the technical minutiae of it all. And Andy Ware sells it, man. He sells it pretty good. I read this. Oh, and I forgot to mention all the 3 books that I've read: Meg, Primal Water, Trench, and The Martian. All 3 I have read as part of my Kindle subscription. So if you guys I'm not getting paid by Jeff Bezos or anything, but Kindle, the Kindle app and the Kindle Unlimited subscription, like if you can subscribe to a OTT, you can definitely subscribe to Kindle Unlimited. It's a lot of fun if anyone is looking for a good time. Like for a good time, subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, no matter how weird it felt saying such a sentence. Okay, so Martian is basically the same story that we have seen in the Ridley Scott movie. It's just a lot more scientific jargons are there, but if you are from a technical background, or so you are kind of, you have that proclivity for NASA and all the space related things and all the science and everything, even if you don't, it's just a story about man's survival against nature, which is pretty much the theme of Meg and other like survival based movies and stories, and it's pretty good actually. So it gives us a lot of like the main Andy Ware excels at turning this huge complicated scientific experiments or explanations or anything into this digestible bites where a non-technical person also can enjoy it as much as anyone who has naturally an inclination towards science and all those things. And it's I just love the self-deprecating humor that he uses. Actually, it's pretty on the nose, tongue-in-cheek, and it's a lot of fun to read. And I am a slow reader. I procrastinate a lot while reading a book. I would go on Facebook. I would just leave a book collecting dust for 4 or 5 days, and then again I'll come back and I'll just start all over, or I'll jump over to a new book, read half of it, and then come back. So I procrastinate a lot. I tend to take my time with a book. But Martian I finished within 4 days, so it's a pretty fast compared to my reading pace. And yeah, I encourage anyone who has loved the movie, you guys will love the book. It's so much better. The ending of the book is comparatively like the movie's ending is better than the book, because come on, it's Ridley Scott, of course it will be. But the book is also a lot of fun. Okay, the next one is Fight Club by, and sorry I'm gonna butcher his name, Chuck Palahniuk. I can never pronounce his name, sorry. Chuck P, I'll say. He was on Joe Rogan podcast, by the way. Yeah, that episode was a lot of fun. So yeah, this book also, I'm a huge fan of the movie, David Fincher's work. It was the first Fincher movie that I had seen, and I was absolutely entranced by the whole narrative style and the plot twist and everything. The book, however, takes a lot of time to get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak. There's a lot of unnecessary like, I won't say babbling, because I don't use such words to denigrate a book, but it's kind of like he meanders a lot with the plot. Like, there would be passages after passages which basically maybe it's only me, but he would write these sentences and long-winded paragraphs which would lead to nowhere narrative-wise, and the prose that how he writes does not sit well with me. Like, I'm not that kind of a reader. That's the same way Fahrenheit 451, when I read it for the first time. Like, I'm not saying he's like Ray Bradbury, because come on, no one can be like him. But it takes a lot of time to get things going in that book, in Fahrenheit 451 as well as this one. And it's kind of like it's I can see how much David Fincher had to streamline in order to make a complete linear narrative out of the book. But what I'll say is this: contrary to what I just said about the Martian, like, I prefer the uh, books ending to the I like the movies ending to compared to the book. I prefer this book's ending compared to the movie, because in the movie it kind of ends, like, I won't get into the spoiler, but it just ends on a kind of somber note, or it's kind of a it leaves a lot of things open for interpretation, where the in the book it clearly states what has happened, like what happens to the main character and how his journey ends. And I won't say it doesn't leave a lot of things for interpretation, but it does gives you enough clues to follow up on what is to come next. I have heard there has been a sequel comic, I think, on this, and I haven't. I don't intend to get into it that much, because I'm not looking forward to reading Fight Club 2. I am hearing it's not that great, and aside from that, like that being said, there's a new afterword written by the author, which is pretty great, which tells us about the entire cultural impact that this book has had over the years on pop cultures or in the mainstream media. So that was a pretty neat thing. So yeah. Okay, the next one that I read is 3 volumes of a comic called Ivor Time Walker. I only own the third volume in the form of a paperback, and the first two I read as part of my Kindle Unlimited subscription. So if you guys are looking for a decent comics about parallel universes, time paradox, and just if anyone is a fan of Doctor Who, I urge you to read this. It's one of the most concise and succinct explanation of time loops and the paradoxes of I'll say uncontained time travel, and what are the ramifications it might have on any universe. It just makes it a very, like, it explains it in a very I won't say layman like manner, but it explains it easily enough to be interpreted by anyone. So anyone could just, even if you don't care about time travel or science fiction in general, it's just a really good love story between Neela and Ivor, and how that one love story goes back and forth through times, universes, different timelines. And Fred Van Nante is like really good in this one. Like, he wrote his heart out. And I'm going to butcher his name, but Perez, I think his art is, if I can show it to you, it's like really, really cool. Like, it's amazing stuff he has illustrated. So yeah, pretty much. Okay. Okay, the next 3 are I got it in the wrong order, my bad. I'm not gonna edit this out, by the way. Okay, so these 3 books I read in quick succession, almost in a month, which is a huge deal for me. Like Harry Potter and the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and Prisoners of Azkaban. So all these 3 are highly enjoyable. Like, they are a little kiddish, so to speak. Like, I am reading it in my late 20s, so it would seem a little kiddish, but it's very wholesome. It's very much a it doesn't gateway to the world that we all know and love. No matter how much differ I may with in terms of politics with J.K. Rowling, I must admit that she has crafted one of the finest, well thought out magic systems and world magic world, so to speak, in fantasy literature. And the first one is very ground level. It's very like there are logical plot points are very less. How Harry survives uh, Professor Quirrell's like plot or machinations is not very well thought out in terms of hard magic systems. So that one, but the entry point, the it's the stepping stone or the first stepping point of the wizarding world for any new reader. And it's kind of like it has that childlike semblance or magic that any reader would fall in love with. So this one was pretty fun. Next comes Chamber of Secrets. This one takes a lot of time to, the plot to get going actually. Plot. Next one is the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and this one takes a little bit time to get the plot going. And once it starts going and it goes all the way, let's just say that. And the mystery as to how the attacks of the basilisk uh, like those how those attacks happen is kind of uh, not gruesome, but it has this kind of claustrophobic uh, effect on the reader, which I really enjoyed. And in terms of world building and how the magic council works and how the history of Hogwarts affect into all this is very much enjoyable. And I have heard that this is the least favorite book of all the 7 books, so this is kind of weird to me, because this one I have read only three and a half. I'm in the middle of Goblet of Fire, so this one has been my favorite so far. So yeah. Next is Harry Potter and the Prisoners of Azkaban. Again, fantastic world building. Really love Lupin and Sirius Black's character, and how their history of the Marauders, as well as Marauders map, and the whole Wormtail, Padfoot, and those things, like how Peter Pettigrew kind of framed Sirius Black into he framed Sirius Black, and which led everyone to believe that he was the kind of informer of Voldemort. And how Harry helps him. Harry finally has someone whom he can call his actual family. So those things were really like heart touching. Although Harry trying to sneak his way into Hogsmeade is a little bit reckless on his part, but then I thought that he's like 14 or 15 years old, like kids, and kids are basically very stupid and they tend to take stupid decisions. So yeah, it's very much he was acting according to his age. So yeah, like that's good on Rowling for carrying that through. Okay, so these 3 books finished. Next one is The Animal Farm by George Orwell. I read this in one sitting, and it's one of the most intense political books I have ever read in my life. The way it criticizes the fall of the Russian Revolution, the Stalin's like dictatorship, and Trotsky's role and Lenin's role, and how Karl Marx created the Communist Manifesto. Those things is presented in such a beautiful allegorical format that it kind of, this is one of those books that kind of stays with you even after you finish it. You kind of ponder on it over and over again, and this is one of those books which is very much needed in today's political climate. Like this is more prevalent than ever actually in today's political landscape, and it might be my favorite political book that I have read so far in my life. Okay, so next, this one I haven't finished actually. So this is the Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I have read till the first one, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Restaurant at the End of the Universe. So this comprises of 5 books and a short story, which, and this was published kind of posthumously, like after Douglas Adams's untimely demise. And I must say the first one is very cheeky on the nose. Like it's very much a fine attempt at scientific world building, steeped in kind of like the entire subgenre that is the British humor. And I would suggest to everyone to go through, like I read it while listening to the audiobook narrated by Stephen Fry, and the second one was narrated by Martin Freeman. So I read it and concurrently I heard it, and it was like a very deep immersive experience. So I'll talk about the first book first. It's one of those books that will like astound you in terms of how effortlessly Douglas Adams can craft this universe, so to speak, or multiverse. And the world building is almost effortless. Like he will give you this kind of long-winded explanation of scientific things, not scientific things, like science fiction related things, and he won't bother to give further explanations like why is this character behaving in such a way, and why is this council is there in that matter, and it's perfect. Like I don't need to know why this council works in that manner, and why the emperor of the universe sits in a hut and talks to a cat, and doesn't care about anything that goes around the universe, but because it's very quirky. Like I don't need to know about all those things. So that's where the beauty lies in this book actually. And Douglas Adams kind of like every single line is steeped with the humor, and it's very sardonic, so to speak, and it's self-deprecating. The characters are just plain weird, and if anyone who loves Rick and Morty, you guys will love this, because you'll see how much Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland pulled from this source material, and how much it actually like how much this book has influenced the entire pop culture genre over the years. And yeah, so the first book is very good. Like there's not a single bad thing I can say about it. It's that good. Second one takes a little bit time. It's a little meandering, but the second one actually has more of a impact than first book in the overarching story. And the second one, the third act of the second one, there's a civilization called God Me something. It's like they're supposed to be our like by bad fortune of ours, they are like we are the descendants of those particular species, and those interactions of and their captain of those species, it's like the third act of Restaurant at the End of the Universe is just like on another level. Like it's philosophical, it's poignant, and it's just so good. So yeah, that's about it. Currently I'm reading a lot of books. I don't know how, if I'll finish reading the remaining 36 in the next 90 days. And it's not even 90 days, I think it's like less than 90 days. It's like around 50 days are left, and I need to read 36 books in these 50 days. So what I'm thinking is, I should do this weekly. Like I should do a weekly update kind of thing. I've seen other booktubers do it. So if any of my 2 or 3 subscribers feel like they need to see this on a weekly basis, just comment, I guess, that sort of thing. Yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.